Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Aftermath series. Let us waste no time at all and dive right into this week's episode of Critical Role. So in this episode there was a whole lot of talking and world building, or island building if you will. So I won't go into excruciating detail of all of the things they talked about, but I will give a brief overview of the important topics that were discussed. So we obviously left off with Viridian asking for the party's story, and a conversation was had where Viridian gave a brief overview of the island and what Vokodo is all about. Viridian mentioned how there are many dangers on this island, dangers you might not expect. Given that Rumblecusp is the center of the world, there are various aspects that you wouldn't normally find on this island. For example, there's a place called the Shaded Tangles, which is far colder than the rest of the island. Viridian explains how Vokodo isn't a malicious or benevolent god in a way. He is a fair god. As long as you give him adequate gifts, he'll provide protection for the village. And Viridian makes it very clear that the people seem to be content. They seem to be happy here. And it's also very clear that the mist has an effect on memory, since most of the people here can't really remember or recall anything outside of the island. The party were asking probing questions about different political factions and world events, and no one could really give an answer. No one could really give an answer about their past at all. And I suppose, yeah, if the people don't know any better, then they probably will be pretty happy. But moving on, those were the main points of that conversation. Everyone decided to break off and rest until dinner later that evening. The party was given a home to stay in while they reside in this village, the previous owners being temporarily relocated during their stay. And so, within this home, the party had a moment to discuss their feelings of what's going on. And I should note that that feeling of someone watching them has not gone away. The party still feels like there are eyes on them at all times. Essentially, they were just talking about their concern about possibly losing their memories, and so they came up with a plan to constantly journal and write down what they're doing so that way they don't forget. And there was a general consensus that there's definitely something fishy going on this island. The party then decided to do a little bit of snooping about in this home to see if they could find anything that might give them some clues as to what's going on. Upon looking up towards the ceiling, there seemed to be shelves. Bo then did some cool monk shit and climbed up to see what was up there, and there seemed to be a small chest and some jeweler's tools. Bo throws the chest back down, which Yasha dives to catch, and upon opening it, there was a set of fine silk clothing. 2 sets to be exact, one for a male and the other outfit was more ambiguous. There was also a child's doll and a curious pocket watch with the initials BV carved into the back of it. All of these items probably belonged to someone's old life before they came onto this island. And so now with this pocket watch, the party now hopes to find someone on this island with the initials BV. Now, Sam thought he had a breakthrough and thought maybe the pocket watch belonged to Vandarin, but Vandarin is Vandarin's first name, so it's likely not his. However, I do believe that Vandarin may be on this island. But after the party finished up their conversations, they had a bit more downtime before dinner, and so the party broke off and did their own things in the meantime. Jester decided to draw some portraits for the various villagers. She thought that might be a fun way to learn people's names and maybe get a little bit more information about the village. Caleb decided to sit by the fire and design some secret wizard stuff that he did not reveal. Ford helped with preparing the meats for the meal. Caduceus decided to help out in the kitchen. Veth was invisible during this time and decided to just follow whoever was doing the most interesting thing, which happened to be Bo, who decided to give a bottle rocket to a random kid in the village. She did ask the kid a few questions, hoping to get more information about Vokodo, but no new information was really gathered. Eventually, a hunting party returned, and this was the first time we've got to finally meet Terra, the third leader of the village. The hunting party seemed to be bringing back a lizard of some kind, which was later revealed to be a Deinonychus, a dinosaur. Definitely not something you would see regularly on an island, mainly because these creatures should probably be extinct, since they're from the time even before the calamity. Eventually, dinner does come, and everyone sits down to have a nice meal. More conversations are had between the party and the leaders, essentially just discussing travel and what the party hopes to accomplish. The party is definitely interested in meeting Vokodo. Viridian offers to guide the party, and so they decided to set off to meet Vokodo in the morning. There were a few other locations that the party was interested in visiting, particularly the ruins and Heaven Falls. Viridian explained that the Heaven Falls was a winding river, where at the end the water went up. I'd say that's definitely worth checking out. After the meal, Yasha decided to put on a little show and play her harp, and thus began a very emotional scene where we just got to see Yasha play this very melancholy, beautiful song with everyone watching, no sounds in the crowd, only the sound of the harp being played, and lightning created by Caleb flashing around her. Matt described this moment as very healing for Yasha, and overall this scene just painted a beautiful picture. After the song, however, Yasha darted off away from the crowd, but the party followed soon after, and they all gathered in their temporary home. Jester decided to commune with the traveler and ask a few questions. The most important answer that the traveler gave was that Vokodo was indeed not an actual god. Now at this point, I think we could all assume that was the case, but now at least we have solid confirmation. And there's been a lot of theories going around that this entity Vokodo is a Markoth, and with all of the mist, the devoted, almost slave-like villagers, the memory loss, the investigation checks that Matt has had the party roll, all point to Vokodo being a Markoth. And so before the party went to bed, they all took turns saying their names, their parents' names, and a small fact about themselves, just so they can make sure they are remembering who they are. In the morning, Matt has the party roll investigation checks, which Yasha, Jester, and Caduceus fail, and they had to choose one item that they misplaced. Another trait of a Markoth. Yasha misplaced her blanket, Jester misplaced her hair oil, and Caduceus misplaced his tinderbox. Yasha was able to find her blanket under a bed, but she can't remember putting it there. Again, this lends to the whole memory loss idea. But shaking off this confusion, the party meets with Viridian, and they all begin their trek towards Vokodo. The journey goes fairly well, except for the fact that not once, but twice does Caduceus accidentally step into a thick, tar-like substance and almost gets eaten by a tar monster of some sort. But the party is easily able to save him. I should also mention that Caduceus gave Jester a magic item that allows her to actually converse with plants, which she then utilized to help their journey through the forest be a bit easier. Eventually, the party reached an area of the island where the temperature dropped, and the colors of the plants began to drain until they were completely surrounded by an almost monochromatic color scheme of blacks, grays, and whites. As they continued their journey, Bo heard a sound, a sobbing sound, coming not too far away, and so she decided to investigate, not waiting for the party to join her. She didn't travel too far away until she came upon a hollowed out tree trunk with a hole in it, and upon reaching this site, the sobbing stopped, and she noticed a pair of glossy eyes looking back at her that were within this tree trunk. Bo decided to sob along with it, maybe trying to empathize with it, but that didn't work, and so she decided to throw ball bearings, pocket bacon, but nothing seemed to be working. Eventually, the rest of the party caught up, and Bo instructed them to cry along with her. Some of them did, some of them didn't, but nothing seemed to be working. Caduceus decided to cast Eyes of the Grave, that seems to be his go-to spell when anything weird starts to happen. And this time, he actually picked up something. He picked up an undead signal coming from right behind Bo. Bo immediately turned around and came face to face with a nightmare-inducing creature. A boddak, to be specific. And that is the cliffhanger that Matt decided to leave us on, and I am absolutely terrified of this creature. They could probably handle one fairly easily, but if there are multiple and the party rolls poorly against their death gaze, it's not looking too good for them. But I'm sure they will be fine. And with all that being said, we are going to wrap up. Let me know all of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions during that episode. I hope you all have an absolutely wonderful rest of your weekend, and I will see you all next week.